If you're a returning history hound or a first-time visitor to the Prepper Historian, hit that subscribe button right now, because today's deep dive is one of those rare topics that connects ancient ingenuity with modern survival in a way most people have never even heard of. This is the kind of knowledge that slips through the cracks of mainstream history, the type of technique that military field manuals quietly buried after the Second World War, because it worked a little too well for keeping troops warm in brutal environments. And here's the twist. It began over 1,000 years earlier, with Viking crews crossing frozen seas and wintering in conditions that should have killed them. What you're about to learn is practical, it's historical, and it's something you can adapt in a real survival scenario today. So, let's get into it. The trick starts with how Vikings understood slow, controlled heat release. Vikings didn't waste heat, and they didn't rely on constant open flames when travelling or raiding across the North Atlantic. They developed what was essentially a compact thermal battery using materials any household had: animal fat, tightly packed fibres, and an oxygen-restricted container. The method allowed them to release steady warmth without needing a roaring fire, which was crucial when hiding their position or conserving fuel in frozen climates. Archaeologists have found residues in small clay and horn vessels that match this kind of controlled burn technology, suggesting these weren't just lamps, but personal heating devices that could be tucked under cloaks, placed under bedding, or used to warm tools and weapons to prevent freezing. Centuries later, militaries revived this Viking method for extreme cold operations. During the First and Second World Wars, especially on the Eastern Front and in Arctic deployments, soldiers needed a heat source that didn't betray their location with smoke or flame. Engineers revisited historical heating methods, and this Viking-style fat-fueled heater reappeared in field manuals in various forms. It became known for producing long-lasting, low-signature heat with very little fuel. Its problem, at least from the perspective of military officials, was how easily civilians could replicate it, and because it could also be weaponized or misused, versions of it were banned from civilian distribution in several post-war territories. Not because the concept was dangerous, but because it was too effective for off-grid heating at a time when governments wanted tighter control over fuel and energy sources. The core science behind the hack is controlled wicking and oxygen limitation. What made the Viking system brilliant was its simplicity. By packing fibrous materials, wool scraps, plant fibres or woven cord into a bowl or horn and saturating it with tallow, they created a dense matrix. Only the very top layer wicked oxygen. This meant the heat released was steady, long-lasting, and almost entirely smokeless. Modern militaries adopted this idea using tins filled with wax, fat or fuel gel combined with compressed fibre. These tins produced hours of warmth, could dry gloves, prevent frostbite and warm rations without smoke. That balance between slow oxidation and insulation is what makes the method so valuable even now. Applying this knowledge today gives preppers dependable heat off-grid. If you want to adapt this historically rooted technique safely and responsibly, think in terms of a microheater rather than an open flame. A modern equivalent uses a small metal container with a tight-fitting lid, cotton or wool packing, and a heat-stable fat like tallow or beeswax. You melt the fat, saturate the fibres, press them firmly into the container, then leave only a small exposed section at the top. When lit, it doesn't behave like a candle. Instead, it produces a gentle, steady warmth you can place under a pot, near your boots, or inside a shelter to maintain bearable temperatures. In freezing camps, this can prevent tools from cracking, allow you to warm hands without giving away your position, or heat a small insulated space with minimal resources. If you've ever winter camped, you know how valuable a heat source that doesn't scream firelight can be. This hack also teaches modern survivalists an important mindset. The Vikings didn't survive harsh climates because they were reckless warriors. They survived because they understood environmental management. They knew how to extend fuel, regulate oxygen, and build self-contained heat systems long before chemistry gave us neat terminology. Their approach forces you to think like a problem solver. How do you get maximum thermal output from minimal material with minimal visual signature? That mindset translates into real prepping today. Instead of relying on power-hungry heaters or bulky stoves, you build small, efficient systems that operate quietly and reliably. You learn to value density of fuel, efficiency of burn, and containment of heat in a way most modern guides completely overlook. Looking at field reports from the 20th century shows the method's reliability. Arctic units use similar controlled fat heaters to prevent frostbite during long recon missions. Mountain troops use them to dry gear inside snow shelters. Some Special Forces units even carried small tins modelled after the Viking technique because they weighed almost nothing, had no moving parts, and worked in wet, freezing, high-wind conditions. These weren't theories. They were survival workhorses. When a technique makes it across 1,000 years and still stands up against industrial-age equipment, that tells you it's something worth keeping in your toolkit. To make it practical, think in terms of replication and redundancy. You can make multiple small heaters using the same principles: dense packing, high-energy fat, oxygen restriction. Keep them sealed until needed so they stay dry. Use them in insulated shelters or reflectors to amplify the warmth. Always think safety first. They still produce heat and must be treated with respect, but they're far safer than improvised open fires in enclosed spaces. This is where history meets prepping. You're not just copying an ancient hack, you're understanding why it works and applying it with modern materials. If you want more historical survival techniques that actually work, hit subscribe, share this video with your fellow history buffs, and keep digging with us. The past still has tools worth carrying into the future, and this Viking heating hack is one of them.